Welcome to today's vlog. Today I have a very special guest for Coffee with Dan, Luca Stoll. Luca is originally from Switzerland but travelled to New York and studied with Branford Marsalis, and it was our teacher Branford who put us in touch with each other a number of years ago now, gosh, over 10 years ago, I think, when I was actually in the States at that time in 2005. Luca's a fantastic tenor player. We had him down for Saffron Hall Jazz in the foyer just a couple of weeks ago, and it's a really good in-depth chat with a musician who's kind of on my wavelength as well. So I hope you'll enjoy it. I hope you'll go away and check out Luca's music. Here's the interview. Please hit a thumbs up and maybe hit a subscribe button as well. But it's a lengthy interview. We chatted for over half an hour. It was only 40 minutes. And this was a challenge to get condensed down to, you know, kind of around about the 12-minute mark. So I'm going to stop talking and we're going to go straight to the interview. So I'm delighted that for Coffee with Dan, finally we've got my good friend Luca Stoll. We kind of tried to arrange it twice before, but the traffic and everything else has beaten us. So we've done it here. So hi Luca, welcome to Coffee with Dan, welcome to the vlog. But you're originally from Switzerland, and I just kind of wondered if you could quickly tell me how you got started on the saxophone.
Two things happened. I remember that because I started on the cello initially. My dad is a cellist. Amateur cellist, but a keen one. He does a lot of chamber music, and so I started on the cello. And then someone played for me "Alchemy" by Dire Straits. You know, that double CD lineup. And I mean, I should get back to it. I don't remember much, but like I've listened to that a lot, and I remember there's a big toned saxophone guy, and also my brother used to listen to Bruce Springsteen all the time. And you have what's his name, big man,
Clarence Clemens. Yeah.
And so that was the first exposure to the sound of the tenor. And then my godfather offered me a few, for some reason, Thelonious Monk CDs. And in the bunch was the Misterioso, I think it's called. The one with the Chirico painting, and has Griffin, and it's alive at the 5 spot. I believe. Has some of the best, tenor playing ever.
Very quickly, we haven't discussed your coffee. What's your choice of coffee? Do you have a particular...
Yeah, actually I do, because when I got here, obviously I had to start drinking tea, and I had to abandon, New York City coffee. It was a big cultural problem, but I did, and now I've done like a long survey of the market, and I found a brand called Brew Tea, yellow boxes, loose leaf tea in a big bag, and that's like really... Good strong
stuff.
Tea.
Good stuff. What was your coffee in New York? Double espresso, or you're a latte man, cappuccino?
That American stuff, like the just black.
Oh yeah, the Pike Place stuff.
The Mecca kind of thing. It's for me. I mean, I know it doesn't work for everyone. I mean, everyone does not relate to New York in the same way as some jazz musicians do. But for me, it was really the core of where the center is, and I guess it was either it had to be New York or New Orleans. I mean, as much as there are amazing jazz musicians in Europe, and I'm from Switzerland, so in Switzerland, and some of my friends with whom I used to play have recorded several albums on ECM, and they all sound fantastic, but it's not at all the style that I wanted to do. And
I mean, we know each other via our teacher. We were both very fortunate to have been taught by Branford Marsalis. I just wonder how, I mean, I've told my story a little bit. How did you persuade Branford to take you on as a student? Did you just tell him I want lessons? Did he hear you play? What was it that sort of got you...
Yeah, it was one of my great moments of luck. But because I went the first time in '98, 6 months, and then came back, I think, until 2005, and then I moved there and lived there for 10 years. But in that gap in the middle, I started listening to Branford a lot, and it really struck me as the one band that had brought something new, a new sound, also him on the instrument, but also as a band, a new band concept. But that still remained completely in line with the tradition, or whatever you want to call it, swing and all that stuff. And so I listened, like Crazy People music to me is like the masterpiece of jazz in the 90s, right? It's not sure exactly when it was recorded, but and then Requiem and all that stuff. So then I would organize trips to go to New York at least once a year to be there a month and learn, or 3 weeks. And I saw that he was playing a week at the Vanguard, so I arranged to be there at that time. I went 4 nights, And the last night was a Sunday, if I remember well, and I said, it's too good, I cannot miss this. And I went even that night. And I had taken my horn to go to another jam session, to a jam session at Smalls or Fat Cat or whatever. And so I was there with the horn, and I had spent such an amazing week of listening to this band playing every night, every set, that I went backstage and I was really scared, to talk to him and to thank him. And I remember one thing is that he was sitting in a chair and sort of like on his back. And so I entered, I was standing, so I was above him. But I remember this as like if he was on a throne and he was like, 10 meters high or something. So that tells you like how much respect and I have for him and had for him. So I walked in there, thanked him, and then he was very nice and he said, "Oh, you have your horn, come and play with us at the next set." And I was, oh. And so my first instinct was to flee. And the place was packed, and so I spotted this zone on the stage of the Vanguard that is in a corner. And the tables are down, but there is one row of chairs that is at the height of the stage. So I went there, right next to the stage, and I thought, so there is no way for me to escape. So I'm sure we'll have to do it. And I sit down there, and shortly before they begin, Kenny Garrett walks in and sits next to me. So it was like, it was very a lot of pressure. And then they played Love Supreme, and they played it. It was amazing. And also sitting from there, just behind Tane, it felt like you're engulfed in the sound of the band, and it was an amazing experience to listen to them. And then they played a medium F blues. And so he gave me a nod, and I went and played. And actually, at the same time, I remained seated. I remember really well that it was like an out-of-body experience. I remember seeing myself walking to the microphones on this, it's like the most holy ground for jazz in New York City. And he was always extremely generous with his time. And I would learn these solos that he told me to learn for the entire Lester Young and Buddy Rich and Nat King Cole session, some Coltrane too, and then I would play them back to him in the hotel room or wherever we were, and always learn a lot just the way he sings a solo. He has more rhythm when he sings alone than most modern rhythm sections that you hear.
What would you say? What were the top two things he taught you? I know there's loads because that's the same for me. There's 150 odd. You could write a book about all the great things he's taught. Maybe that's an idea for us in the future. But what were the top two things that you'd say he if you were to impart that to another person, you would say Branford said this and he said do that. What were the two things if you had to put it into two things?
Yeah, so I guess in terms of I don't know, for lack of a better word, of methodology on how to learn this music is really the emphasis on learning from the recordings, which I used to do already before I met him, but not with the same sort of integral dedication, meaning that's the source and that's what you do. Because maybe he changed his routine now, but back then he was saying he learns solos and listens to music, and then he works on classical etudes, but he never does all the Berkeley stuff. Awareness and insistence on learning the solos, and attached to this, of course, is the critique of the established jazz pedagogy, which I share entirely, and he's the best, I think, advocate against all this craziness that all these products that they have created just to sell them to students. I mean, so all included there. Basically, if you learn from the recordings and you learn those solos well, everything you need to learn as a saxophone player is there.
That's what he said to me. Every answer to every question I have is on recordings.
As I would play the things back to him, I remember that he always insisted on things. So he was, he would say, the first time I went back, it was for Back to the Land. And said, okay, you got your notes right, but where is the vibrato? And I don't know. So he gave me an exercise for the vibrato. Then I worked on that for 6 months. And when I came back again, I played it to him with the vibrato. And then he was very happy. And I really understood that basically that's much more important than the actual little notes. I mean, the actual pitches is everything that goes with it, the vibrato, the portamento, the whatever, the phrasing.
Question I've asked all the musicians I've had on this Coffee with Dan conversation. If you could only practice for 15 minutes a week, if you could only get 15 minutes a week, what would you practice?
I would just practice the solos I've learned.
Yeah.
Or even in 15 minutes, maybe try to learn new stuff. But yeah, 15 is so little that I would, for example, that Lester Young album that I learned entirely. So now, that was years ago. So now I would have to refresh it.
My last kind of vlog question is, what's your best purchase? Now, you can either answer this in pounds or dollars, because I appreciate you've not been in the UK for too. Let's say $50. What was your best purchase for under $50?
Best purchase on $50, I would say get. Let's see if it must be here. Yeah, get this. That's probably about $50.
Good man. All that music.
That's Wagner's Ring des Nibelungen. For me, life-changing. Evans was the discovery of the music of Wagner.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, it happened before I met Wagner.
You did well there.
Branford.
He's a big Wagner fan, isn't he?
Yeah. And several times, I remember once in Basel, in the hotel room, he was listening to actually that recording, the Karajan recording of Götterdämmerung, and singing all the parts, like he would like sing, jump from one to the other, like buried parts that I would discover only much later listening carefully, and he was singing all that stuff. My
final question, it's relatively easy. So what are you working on now? What are your current projects?
I applied to the University of Oxford to do a doctorate, and I was accepted, which I was surprised, but it's a great opportunity. So I've been now doing a year, and I have 2 more years of research, basically very linked to the work I do, and I'm going to look in detail at the tenor style of the 40s, not the Lester Young school, but the Coleman Hawkins school. So mostly Hawkins, Thompson and Baez, and a little bit of Ben Webster before he developed his very individual own style. He really sounded much like Coleman Hawkins in many regards.
And Luca, you've got a website. Can people get CDs via your website, or is it on iTunes or stuff? Your music, or what's the best way to hear your music?
Yeah, so it's on iTunes, on CD Baby, and on the website you have. So that's an album, a live album that I did in Switzerland, but with friends in New York that with whom I played a lot when I was there. So Pete Van Nostrand on drums, Clovis Nicolas on bass, and Tadata Kauno on piano.
Yeah.
So it's a really fantastic rhythm section. And so that's on iTunes and on CD Baby. And then on the website there are a bunch of videos of gigs.
Well, I'll link to it below in the description for people so people can check it out there. Luca, thank you so much for your time for Coffee with Dan. It's been a real pleasure talking to you, and we'll see you again really, really soon. Thanks, Luca.
Definitely hope so. Thanks, man.